Welcome to One Broken Mom, a podcast dedicated to raising awareness of mental health, parenting, and self-improvement. I am the host, Ameé Coney. One Broken Mom is not a family show. It is meant for adults and contains sometimes adult language. The topics I cover can be serious and unsettling to people. However, I do have a sense of humor laced with a little bit of a punk rock attitude. So if you're interested in real talks about real stuff by real people so that we can all get better together, well, then you're in the right place, and so welcome. All right, everybody, welcome back to One Broken Mom. As much fun as it is to always be picking off the scabs on our wounds and to commiserate about who messed us up and why, the reality is that the road to healing must be balanced. We can't keep driving over the rough and rocky terrain day in and day out. Otherwise, the suspension on our cars, which is our bodies and our minds, will get wrecked and they'll either slow us down or break down completely. And those of us with trauma histories are built for carrying pain. There is no doubt about it. But that's not the point. We have lived our lives and we've been able to prove that we are capable of doing many things, including carrying the burdens of our families that have been handed down from generation to generation. The point is, and the reason why you guys listen, is to put down that burden once and for all and to go live the life that you want. And so balance, pacing into our journey moments to relax, reflect, sit with the information we have, and to practice changes. Knowing everything doesn't change anything, not here. We have a nervous system and a body that needs to be retuned, and that means that we need as many tools and resources available to us to help us with that, and to help us gain control of this sympathetic nervous system that gets triggered and forces us into the autopilot that we all know is sometimes hurting us, so that we can stop using those neuropathways that are harming us and begin strengthening the new ones that will help. And so today I have with me Jen Johannsen, and she's a school psychologist turned meditation teacher. And she's going to talk to us about meditation for the everyday stressed out people that we are. And so welcome to the show, Jen.
Thank you. I'm so excited to come and chat today.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about the history of meditation. I think that it's important to kind of lay some groundwork. I know a lot of people have assumptions about it, which is obviously why you do what you do. But I'd like to walk people through, that this isn't something new. This is something that's actually got a lot of history behind it. And so what can you tell us about meditation and why and when it was developed?
Well, like you said, it is an ancient practice. It has a lot of roots in the Buddhist tradition. That's really a lot of what we think of traditional meditation. That's where it started thousands and thousands of years ago in monasteries and the monks practicing it. However, if you look across religious traditions, it's a little bit different across, like in Christianity, but there's still components to it. Certain types of prayer, you can make the argument that praying a rosary in Catholicism is a form of meditation, of focusing your attention on certain things. So a lot of people will assume it has Buddhist roots, which it does, but the traditional Buddhist roots that has been practiced for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And science wasn't really, the scientific method wasn't really looking at it, but it's interesting to know that this practice was seen cross-culturally, cross-nationalities. So from an anecdotal perspective, that tells us that people are getting something out of this. This is helping people because people that weren't having contact with each other were still doing similar practices. They look different, but they were still triggering the same thing. And recently, in the last 20 years or so, meditation has sort of had a resurgence. Back in the 70s and 80s, it was still looked at this like weird monk thing wearing robes or this hippy dippy thing. But science has really embraced it in the last 20 years. And there's been so much research that keeps coming out that's really like telling us what we already knew and validating what we already knew. And so like people that have been practicing it for years are like, yeah, duh. Like I knew this was happening, like way to get on the bandwagon now, guys. Like we've been doing this for years. We've known this helps us for years. Like you needed a scientific research paper to validate it, but it's really exciting to like have the backup and the validation and not just the anecdotal things where we notice in ourselves, but to be able to understand why these awesome things are happening and what exactly those mechanisms are. And obviously there's still a lot more study that needs to happen, but it's really exciting to have meditation, have that scientific backing, and also come out of the religious realm because it's not a religious practice if you don't want it to be. Just like eating is a big part of Catholicism, the bread and the wine and things like that, but it doesn't make eating a religious practice. It's come from that. But you can separate it. So it doesn't need to have this religious undertone, even though that's sort of where it was birthed from.
Yeah. I know my introduction to meditation did come from, like you said, from studying Buddhism. And I did that many years ago before I'm even, immersed into what I'm immersed into at that point. And it was partly a spiritual journey for me.
Mhm.
And, but the value that I had gained out of it was this being able to develop mindfulness and learning how to become a third party observer of my situation. And, and here I was doing this long before understanding even more that I know about, the neuroscience behind it.
Mhm.
But you're right. Even then, when I started to really look into it, which was before my kids were born, so it's been almost 20 years now. There wasn't any neuroscience backing it up. It came out of the spiritual realm, as a benefit to us. So with that aspect of it, what does meditation do for our mind? And how does that practice, help us in terms of the inner workings of our head?
With functional MRIs, we can see like actual brain changes that meditation helps with. One of the biggest studies through the University of Massachusetts, one of the most exciting ones by Sarah Lazar, she could show that after 8 weeks of meditation, so not years, not months, not having to go on this mountain retreat, but just 20 to 30 minutes every day, that participants in this program, their amygdalas were actually smaller. And your amygdala is that part of that brain, that's that alarm system that can get overstimulated. It causes a lot of stress. It's like the sentinel telling you that to fire up that fight or flight. So when you can actually like decrease the amygdala size and decrease its reactivity, your whole body and your nervous system are going to react differently. It's just going to bring down the alarm a little bit more. So that was incredibly exciting to see that there's actually physical changes in the brain. And not only were the physical changes, but people were reporting they were feeling better too. So it was the doubles. It was awesome because it wasn't just the brain had changed, but they were actually reporting that they were feeling better. The other thing that she found in that study was the hippocampus, which is the part of your brain related to learning, your emotional control, all good things, was actually bigger. So you saw increases in your hippocampus and decreases in the amygdala, which was huge to actually see changes in as short of 8 weeks for less than a half hour a day.
That's pretty amazing. Well, and and the people that are here on this journey, One Broken Mom is about it kind of opening up the doors and understanding of childhood experiences when things like the amygdala and the hippocampus are actually growing and developing and receiving information. And so to think that you can actually decrease a big part of what triggers us and what gets us veering off down a path that we don't really want to go
Mhm.
down there. That's pretty exciting. Okay, so now we know that we've got some real brain changes from the body's point of view. What we feel everywhere else, and we know that we're our good moods go up, and we're seeing some changes in terms of parts of the brain that are increasing in size that we want and decreasing in size. What does meditation do to the rest of the body that somebody might actually end up noticing that could be benefits to us?
Meditation really brings awareness into the rest of the body. And then also the breathing helps regulate that nervous system. So noticing breath and then actually noticing body sensations really brings people into the present moment. And especially people with a trauma history that have had a lot of trauma in their nervous system's a little hijacked as a result of that. Just that grounding to the present moment and actually noticing your seat, your in the chair, how your feet are on the floor. As I'm saying this, I'm like doing it,
I know,
making
it's
myself
like
in the present moment. That's what I'm doing right now. But really just grounding yourself into that present moment is huge for the body because there's so much coming into our nervous system that we don't even notice. By actually noticing it, you're grounding that nervous system and not letting your nervous system be hijacked back into the past, back into that trauma. It's very healing for people with trauma histories to be able to actually ground to that present moment and let their nervous system know, like, that's not happening to me right now. I'm sitting in this chair and this is what's happening.
Yeah. And, and so this is bringing up something that I really like about this conversation, which is, when we normally think of meditation, we think that we have to schedule it in. We have to find a dark room or a floor mat and, light some incense or wave some sage around. And I'm kind of like overblowing this and stuff. But when people think of meditation, they think about it having to be this really like rigid structure. And then, a lot of people are asking themselves, when do I have time to do that? Like, I don't have time to work that in. And I know that for me, like around my neck, which nobody on the listening will be able to see here, but this is a piece of rhodonite on a stainless steel chain that I wear with me. And I used to carry things called gratitude stones in my pocket, something that I learned from watching The Secret, like about 7 or 8 years ago. And this is how when I'm feeling stress, and we've talked about this on the show quite a bit, everybody, when they know they're triggered, they do start to notice that their body. And then for me, it is my chest. And so that's why breathing is really important to me. But I will actually grab this and pull it out from under my shirt. I wear it with me every single day. I'll hold on to it and I will, call it on the spot meditate. Like it'll just be a moment for me to just kind of come to center. And I think that that's a new concept for a lot of people, that meditation doesn't necessarily have to be 20 to 30 minutes sitting on the floor cross-legged or in a chair or whatever. It can actually be these mini moments. Is that right?
Yep, that is correct. I actually teach something called the meditation triangle. So there's like 3 parts that I think if you want to hit all 3 of them, like that is like the most amazing part for your body. But even if you don't hit all 3, that's fine too. But the 3 parts are like a typical like sitting practice, but it could be standing, but 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just something where you're really doing a focused activity. It doesn't need to be sitting cross-legged. It could be walking, but 5 minutes of actually like, okay, I'm going to do this now. And then something what I call the 911 response. So like you said, like you get really overwhelmed, you're feeling that in your body, you get an angry email, your kid is throwing a tantrum, something that's like really triggering you in the moment and you're feeling that stress. That's just a really quick breathing exercise that just recenters you. And then the third piece is just bringing yourself into the present moment, like just noticing what's around you. And usually that's just like using your 5 senses. You can just pick one, like, what am I smelling right now? What does the air feel like? Is it cool? Is it warm? Just to keep yourself out of your head, so that you're not ruminating over past stuff or worrying about future stuff, but just like actually noticing where you are in the space. So 2 of those 3 things like take literally seconds. So you don't need a standard practice. And even if you don't have the third leg of just sitting for a couple minutes or walking for a couple of minutes, that's fine. You're already making huge progress just with those 2 other things.
Agree. And I'm glad you talked about the fact that the focused activity doesn't necessarily have to be sitting still, because for a while, I had also figured out for myself, and I'm sharing this with other people, is that, when I like to exercise and the types of exercise that I like to do, I had always told everybody, like, I don't like to exercise with other people. This isn't a group activity for me. It actually needs to be quiet and solitary. And because that is time I spend, in my head, and I spend in my head feeling my body, working on my things, working out some of the stress of the day. And so for me, I found that my exercise schedule needed to be in the afternoons, because that's when I needed to basically, another friend that I, met talked about taking out the trash that day, and so the exercise itself actually became a part of that. And I wouldn't have qualified that as meditative, by the definitions that we're blowing out of the water today. But it is a meditative practice. It is something. And when people would want to work out with me, I'd get really annoyed and I'd tell them no, because I didn't want to sit there and be talking with other people. That wasn't allowing me to get, what I needed emotionally, out of the whole experience. So exercising could be for some people if that's how they're able to discharge.
And I think a lot, moving your body, like you said, is a huge discharge of just letting that stress out in that nervous system. And meditation can really have a really broad definition. It's just noticing your thoughts, like just noticing them without judgment. So don't have a thought and then get pissed at yourself for having a thought, or start judging yourself for having that thought, or start judging yourself for what that thought is. It's just noticing it. So it's however that works for you, and the most important thing is finding what works for you. And if exercise is during that time that your body is able to discharge that energy and makes your mind more easily do that, then that's amazing. You make it work.
Cool. Now, I know that, back a few years ago, I had actually tried using a phone app for meditation. And in particular, I was trying to focus on changing my money mindset because I was disappointed in where my financial situation, my financial conditions were. And even before, again, I knew what I know now, there was still this detection of why couldn't I turn a corner, in terms of, wealth development for myself, but also, just being more responsible with my finances personally. And so I started to do this like daily, all the time before I went to bed, in the middle of the day, whatever. I mean, I poured myself into listening to this financial mindset, and it would say things like, remove the gate or the wall that's blocking you from, what is that wall? And at that time, to be honest with you, I didn't know what the wall was. Like, I thought I knew what the wall was, but I had no idea what I know now, which is about scripts and scarcity. And again, what trauma does in terms of how it actually impacts our financial resources. And so I gave up on it. I just said, this obviously isn't working. So I know that some people may have tried this before in the past, and that's why I want to talk about this. So tell us what meditation is not for people so that they don't dismiss this as, I've already done it, it didn't work for me, therefore why?
It's not controlling your thoughts, and it's not just sitting there and having no thoughts. I think people think they fail at meditation because they sit down or they're walking or however they're doing it, they're exercising, and they think they could just clear their brain and the thoughts are going to go away and they're going to feel this peace and generosity and all these good things, when really that's not really meditation. You're going to have thoughts. That's the whole point of meditation, is noticing those thoughts. And by practice of noticing them is when you give yourself that little second of pause so you can choose how to react instead of just letting your knee-jerk reaction, your nervous system react for you. So you get to see those thoughts and choose how to react. So when you sit down or walk and do meditation and your brain is filled with thoughts and you notice them, that means you're doing it right. Like that is success with meditation, because you noticed it. Because we have around 50,000 thoughts a day on average. How many of those do you actually notice? And it's that practice of noticing them so you can bust through those stories and you can make a different decision instead of just being on that autopilot. So I like to think of a thought and then you noticing the thought and going back to your point of focus is like a bicep curl. Like, it's one repetition, like, oh, I'm thinking about my lunch today. I'm going to go back to my point of focus, whether that's breath or how I'm walking or how my body's feeling right now. That's like a repetition. And then you have another thought and you notice it, and that's another repetition. So if you never have those thoughts, you're not doing any reps, and your biceps or your brain are not going to be changing that much. So it's actually, you're doing it right when you have those thoughts and you're noticing them and going back to that point of focus. But the key is, and this is the hardest part, is to notice them without judgment. Mm-hmm. So just be like, oh, that thought's here. I've heard a meditation teacher talk about, and he's British, so this makes a lot more sense when he says this, is you're going to notice the thought, but you're not going to sit down and have a cup of tea with it. You're not going to like ruminate with it. You're not going to have a whole conversation with it. You're just going to let it basically come in the door and out the door and then move on to the next thing. So don't get all hung up on it. And if you do start ruminating about it, don't judge yourself for that, because then you're judging yourself for judgment and then judging. So it's all this judgment. So just keep going, just notice it and just keep practicing and just think, I just had another repetition.
Mm. And as you're saying that too, having been guilty of that, where you're like, you sit there and I catch myself like, as I'm getting ready for the day and I've got all my thoughts going through my head. And then all of a sudden I notice that I've traveled and then I've taken residence with one of these thoughts. Mm-hmm. And usually, and this is why I do want people to really think about this. This is powerful, is that when you suddenly have the ability to, like you said, you've exercised those biceps enough to go, whoa, hold on. I just took a journey. I did not really want to take a journey. And what I always notice is that I start to notice my body. And then when I can feel like your chest is tightening, hold on a second, you kind of like step out and go, oh, that's because you're getting yourself worked up. And why are you getting yourself worked up? Because you just took up residence with something you really don't need to be thinking about. And that's what meditation really does end up doing for you, is like, and that's why I don't want to dismiss the effect of the body, on this, on being able to notice that, because, like I said, that's my trigger. That's when I know that that my whole nervous system is responding to something, and I'm going from thinking about this purely and cognitively and without judgment to getting my fingers in it and pulling the scabs off on it, and there's no point at that point. Like, I'm not in the danger mode, but yet my body is responding to the danger mode. And being able to back yourself, back yourself out of that. Now, how do you, I would say, you said you don't have to clear your mind of thoughts, but is there a course of action? Like, as you do this, does it get easier though to get a little bit more focused, for people to do that? I mean, or should they expect that, meditation is just going to be a bunch of noise in their head, several minutes a day?
I think you do get better at it. And also, I think you get better at the non-judgment thing. So when a thought does come up, it doesn't feel like that big a deal. I've noticed from my own practice that I am much better at having thoughts. I have less thoughts and feeling much more at peace and calm, and my body calming down more quickly than I did when I first started. I also will say it's a day-to-day thing. That's also feedback for me. Like, if I'm sit down and do my practice just for a couple of minutes and I'm noticing like my brain is really all over the place today, that gives myself feedback. Like, what's different? Did I not sleep well? Is there something like underlying that my body, like you talked about, is feeling stressed about, that I'm not even like aware that I'm thinking about? Did I have too much coffee? So it just sort of depends. It's a lot of feedback for myself, but it does get easier. And it also gets a lot easier with the non-judgment. And then I find that the wonder of meditation and the superpower of meditation is not really what happens while you're doing it. Like, that's awesome. Your body can calm down. It's an amazing thing, coping strategy to be able to use. But then you'll just notice little things throughout your day that you react to differently. So sometimes I'll come out of meditation and I'm like, oh, I don't really feel much different. Well, okay. But then later in my day, I'll notice I'm responding to my kids differently. I have that second pause before I respond with, snapping back or telling them to do something in a harsh way, or feeling myself get stressed when they aren't, listening or doing things the correct way. The way that I think, when I say correct, the way that I think they should be done. Obviously the correct way.
Yeah.
Or just someone cuts you off in traffic and your knee-jerk reaction is to respond negatively to that. And now I've noticed, like, usually I will respond like, oh, I bet they have someone we're really important to go. And whether that's true or not, I'm not getting myself all agitated about it, because why would I give them that gift of giving me my agitation? It doesn't matter to them either way. So just little moments like that through the day is really the superpower of it, that you'll just see little changes.
Yeah. And I believe that, we talk about here, again, when you are living under chronic stress, or you grew up under chronic stress, you actually have your acute stress response, or your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, is hyper aroused. And, it's the baseline isn't at a normal regulation for people that just have, nice placid lives, when we still may be immersed in stress. And some of us might still be like, trauma tends to recreate itself over and over again. And so I know some of my listeners out there are still in bad relationships, or dealing with abusive situations, or trying to get out of them. And so it's not like your baseline is down at a low level right now. Like, it's not at a normal setting. It's still up, the gauge, the RPMs are turned up a little bit higher, and it doesn't take much to bump us up and bump us up and bump us up, But what you're describing is that when you're able to, and that's why I said, guys, I walk around with this around my neck, because it's easy, even if you are able to pull yourself down to a baseline, when you've lived your entire life up here at 10,000 RPMs of stress level, it doesn't take much to jack you right back up into it. And so being able to know how to pull down and then actually get yourself centered just means that it takes a whole lot more energy to get you stressed back out again, because this is where you need to be. And hand signals. I'm sorry for the podcast listeners. There's a bunch of hand signals going on right now that you cannot hear. Right. But my hand is down low, and, and I've been talking about it being up high. But that's really the point, of doing this. And so you're describing exactly the benefits that I want my listeners to understand, like why this is an important factor to incorporate in some way into your lives, of, renormalizing because good, healthy systems know how to re-regulate. Stress is normal. We're all going to deal with it. But when we haven't learned or have had opportunities to learn how to let the body re-regulate it down, we're kind of giving it a hand, right? I mean, like we're teaching it what it should have learned, at a young age on what re-regulation looks like. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
And it's a process, and it's just more practice and giving it more repetitions for that system to really re-regulate itself.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And that's why I think talking about meditation in a way that is normalizing it and showing it, because again, I go back to, one of the greatest benefits I get is as a person who has a chronic illness, there's some correlating studies that show that it's a part of the trauma history. It's rheumatoid arthritis. But like I said, I know that I feel in my chest when I'm activated. And so for me, the big thing is to slow my breathing back down and to get my brain focused back again. And so sometimes I can do that depending on the stressful condition. And sometimes I find that it gets, it's out of my hands. Like I said, it just happens automatically because I'm letting a thought, run out in there. And so when I'm able to do that, when the body calms itself down, it's this whole beautiful interconnection, right, of the hormones and the neurotransmitters. And, if you can get your body to calm down, your mind is going with it, right? They're connecting themselves, the two of them together. And so sometimes for me, it is slow the breathing down, and then naturally everything else happens right after that. The calmer thoughts, the ability to process better, the re-regulation. What am I going to say that's not going to piss somebody off? Or do I need to piss them off? What am I really trying to do here? What's the result I'm looking for?
Yeah, you get to choose instead of letting your body choose for you.
Right. Yeah. And that hasn't worked out for me in the past, just letting my mouth say exactly what I wanted, which is why I have a show to help people understand how to not do that anymore. So, okay. So, and I'm curious here, you started off as a school counselor, which you did, and then you got into this field. I mean, what changed for you to change careers and really start to put yourself into this?
Well, when I first stumbled upon meditation, I was working as a school psychologist, and I originally rolled my eyes at it. I was like, really? This isn't really going to help. I have a caseload of 2,400 students. I have 2 little kids at home. I mean, I was stressed, and I'm not going to really sit and do nothing. A, I don't have time for that. B, I have this huge to-do list of actually spending that time getting those done will make me feel better instead of actually taking time. So I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. But research study after research study kept coming across my desk of all these wonderful benefits of meditation, like reduction of anxiety, reduction of depression, all these physical benefits, increasing immunity. The brain studies were not out yet at that point, so those are relatively new, but just all of these amazing benefits. And here's this thing that's inexpensive. It doesn't cost any money at all. It's relatively easy to implement. And when you work in a school setting, budget is a big, we don't have a lot of money for all these amazing big programs. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll give this silly thing a try and see what happens. And I really started with myself, obviously, because I'm not going to teach it to other people or use it with other people until I have an understanding of what's going on. So I downloaded an app and just went through that route. And it was some stops and starts of getting going and, making sure it happened on a regular basis. But I was shocked at what happened. I felt so much less stressed. I was able to choose my reactions to things instead of just going from what my body, and I thought I was in control of that, but you would look back and be like, why did I just do that? So that little second pause, and then starting to implement it with students. The barrier to that is when you have a caseload of 2,400 and trying to work with students one-on-one, it wasn't really moving the needle much. And also I've learned really quickly, usually when you say, hey, there's this great app, you should go try it, without much follow through or not a lot of teaching beyond that, it really doesn't happen that much. People will maybe give it a try once or twice, but there's not a lot of follow through with that. Not because anything's wrong with them. It's just people usually need more support, and there's amazing apps out there for meditation that can teach meditation. But just like exercise, I know without supports in place for me to actually do it, I sort of let that go by the wayside too, even with amazing apps. And there's a million exercise apps that are fabulous. So just knowing yourself and being able to put that support in place. So meditation actually, for a personal level, actually gave me the space to be able to be like, I don't really want to do this anymore. Like this thing that I've been doing for 12 years and I went to school for all this time for, and I'm still paying my loans on for this education. I don't really know if this is like really what I need to be doing. And at first that was like horrifying to myself. Like, what am I even talking about? Like this is my career. This is what I've built. But just having that little space. And at the beginning, it was a really, really quiet voice. But over time, it got a little bit louder and gave me the courage to be like, okay, this isn't really what I need to be doing. And this isn't the best for me. I really have my personal stress under control in this role, but this isn't it. So that was sort of the arc over that. And then I was actually listening to a podcast, ironically, that was talking about this meditation teacher training in Los Angeles. And I was like, okay, that's it. Like, this is the final piece, because I have my own practice and I have my psychological training, but how exactly to teach this thing. So that was like the final piece of the puzzle that sort of brought it full circle.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And you were, while you were talking about that, there's, of course, I've got like 10 other questions that came out of that. And so let me go through orderly here. The one that I really do want to mention and bring up is the fact that, the meditation actually, brought up some thoughts to follow, which was a direction for you. And, one of the things that I do is I actually coach businesses, and I actually blend this mental health with with business techniques and strategies and stuff. And so visualization, this is another part that meditation actually is. I mean, we think of meditation as we've described it as noticing our thoughts, controlling our system, our bodies. But then there's this other, like the ninja, Jedi version of it, which is once you're able now, and I keep using my fingers like I'm sitting down at a table here again, sorry, podcast people, but imagine my little four fingers and thumbs together. But once you understand the fact that you can actually manage thoughts, and that your brain, and the powerful, amazing organ that it is, can also push through the body the feelings you want to be able to have. That's another aspect of this that I think is powerful. And it's an aspect I use in business for myself, and also, when I've talked with other people, which is using meditation as a way of visualizing the new results in your life, the things that you actually do want to have, and being able to close your eyes, think about, a direction you want to go, where you see your business going, for example, where do you see your personal relationships going, for example, imagining thoughts running through there, and then those thoughts triggering all the good chemicals, the dopamine, the endorphins, the serotonins, the oxytocins, all of those things, and then letting that flood your body, that ends up pushing out the crap you don't actually want. And so, meditation can evolve in a really powerful tool, which is the visualization, right?
Yes. And it's like just another thing in your toolbox of being able to put it all together and being adept and flexible to be like, okay, this is really what I need right now. I'm feeling less stress. And like you said, just visualizing that thing and really letting your body just feel it and sit in that feeling is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, I get goosebumps when I think about that, because it is one of the ways that, there are days when you need to take the trash out and you need to be able to, decompress, de-escalate and all that. And then there are days where you're like, listen, I've got these goals, I've got these dreams, and I'm going to sit and really think about what that would mean to me and how my life would change, and what are those thoughts that happen, and how's my body going to feel when I'm in that moment, and all of that. And that's that other, that other aspect that I want people that, to see that that's what we're talking about, being able to grow this control of our thoughts, not controlling them. I know you said that, so I'm going to take that word back, but sitting with our thoughts, and feeling them, and experiencing them, and allowing what we want to have happen, with the body, good and bad. Now your work as a school psychologist, stool's another word, it has nothing to do with anything other than sitting on a three-legged stool. But as a parent myself, and knowing that I have kids and some of their friends have experiences with trauma themselves, and they tend to be extremely dysregulated, and it gets them into trouble in schools. How would you and how do you teach meditation to the teenager going through adolescent brain development, which is crazy in itself? I mean, what were some of the techniques that you actually use? Because I think some parents here, myself included, would like to know, like, how do I help a kid that could get all the benefits that we just talked about from this, but in a way that's palatable and understandable for them?
Yes. I think also just starting with the science, just a little bit of it, because to tell them the why is huge, because other than that, you're just an adult telling them another stupid thing for them to do, like that they don't want to hear about, and they know it anyway. So, but really giving them the why, and almost like with some wonder, like, look at this thing, like your brain can be changing like this, and talking about the amygdala. And even if they don't understand it, but talking to them like they're an adult, especially the upper teens, like acting and assuming that they can understand that science, and just talking about the why is a really huge foundation to start. And then just doing a simple breathing thing with them and noticing it is huge. I do something called the 16 seconds, where you breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, out for 4, and hold it for 4. And that 16 seconds, and you tell them, like, just play along with me. Like, please just humor me for 16 seconds. I know this is stupid and I know this is weird, but just humor me and notice something. Yeah. It just notice what happens. And sometimes they'll tell you that they notice something, and other times they'll still brush you off. And even if they brush you off, that little seed has been planted in their brain of something like, oh, this actually worked. And I had actually a pulsometer in my office, which is like the little thing you put over your finger in a doctor's office. They're like $20 on Amazon. They're not expensive.
Totally
And
yeah,
they're amazing. They're super cheap. And you just put it on your fingers, non-invasive. And a lot of times I would have them have that on their finger. I'm like, look what your pulse is before we do this. I'm only going to take a couple seconds of your time. Just humor me while we do this, and then look at your pulse again. And it's not 100% accurate, because A, it's a cheap medical thing from Amazon, and B, sometimes it takes more than 16 seconds for a person's pulse to come down, especially if there's been an extensive trauma history. And then we'll work through that more. So I preface it with, like, we'll see if this works or not, and we'll try it again later if it doesn't. But the majority of the time, it does work. And then they have like tangible physical number in front of them that just showed them like their body did change. And so that's huge. And a lot of times I'll just let them play with the pulsometer. So just giving it to them and be like, see what you can do with your pulse. How do you think you can lower it? Like, what ideas do you have? And sort of put it in their court. You could throw things out like breath, or just watching something like those glitter jars, or something interesting on YouTube that's sort of calming, and put the ball in their court of like, how can you calm down, and give examples, and then go from there. So just really making it their choice, but showing them what can happen. And then just also be like, what if you could do this all the time? How would your life be different? And putting it out there too. But especially working with individuals with the trauma history, that relationship is like number one. So as a parent or as a teacher or anyone else, just really working on that relationship to make them feel like they're in a safe place is the foundation prerequisite of anything with teaching with meditation.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense. And we all know that, especially in our experiences growing up ourselves, is that within schools, we've tended to react to the symptoms, which is the bullying, the disobedient behaviors, the antisocial behaviors, and never really had an opportunity or really understanding, to be honest with you, of what's triggering all of that, that to go back, not what the behavior is, but why the behavior is where we're at. And so being able to have that awareness now, that when a kid shows up to school and they're picking on a bunch of other kids, it's not because they were born, an asshole. Yeah. There's something deeply wrong in their home. I mean,
Mhm.
in their home, whether it's physical neglect, emotional neglect, abuse, chaos, whatever. This kid is showing up to school, again, in a hyper aroused situation and has nothing to do and no resources to let it go except
Mhm.
against other students in his school. And, you know, and so when schools focus on expelling the kid, putting him in detention, you know, failing them or whatever it is, and never are able to come in and, you know, and understand what's really at play here. And more importantly, when these kids go into homes and you can't fix the home problem, you know, you can't make the dad not be a jerk, you can't make the mom, you know, not have to work two jobs and be unavailable for her kids, then these kinds of skills are pretty key, right? This puts it in the hands of a kid who shouldn't have to do this, but ignoring the fact that we can teach them how to do this and give them an opportunity to do this doesn't mean we shouldn't try, you know.
Mhm.
So
Exactly, exactly. And there is a movement in general called trauma-informed schools.
mhm.
And there's a lot of training that's happening around that. So that is incredibly exciting to see schools sort of embrace that. And like you said, they can't change the home, but just teaching teachers how to recognize that and then how we can teach those kids so that they can be successful.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, what is it that you do today then to help people that don't want to take sabbaticals to India? They aren't going to see themselves doing downward facing dog in a yoga class or collecting crystals. How do we get people meditating that could get the benefits of it, but don't want to do it and feel weird that they're doing it?
I actually created something called the Meditation Matchmaker, which is a quiz because I'm going to say I discovered. I didn't come up with all these different types of meditation, obviously, as we talked about the rich history. But when I first started meditating, I just thought there was like one way to do it, right? Like you have to do it this way, whether you like it or not. And this is how you do it. But there's all these amazing, wonderful types, and you just have to find out what works for you. You don't need, none of them involve crystals that I teach or anything like that, but just experimenting a little bit and finding out what you like. So there's a quick quiz on my website that just asks you a couple questions about your preferences. And then if you provide your email address, then I'll email you a quick 5-minute meditation. Just get started in if you like it. And if you don't, you can go take the quiz again and see if you switch your answers a little bit, something else will happen. But, and also know you don't have to meditate in a certain spot. You can do it in the carpool line picking up your kids. You can do it on an airplane. You could do it on your couch. You don't need any special materials or anything like that. No crystals at all. Just sitting and being comfortable, and you can do it.
Yeah. Now I said mine came back as breath. What are the other meditation things that people might, if they take the test, you know, might their responses be or their
Yeah.
alignment be?
Breath is one. And then there's mantra, which is focusing on a specific phrase as a point of focus. So you repeat the phrase silently to yourself. And there's a million different mantras, obviously. Some of them are in English. Some of them are not in English, just so that your mind has less to like really think about because the words really don't make any sense. So breath, mantra, walking for people who really can't sit still or feel not safe when they're sitting still, when their nervous system is really activated. You can meditate while you're walking. Visual meditation. Sometimes people really feel uncomfortable closing their eyes. So being able to meditate with the visual focus instead of closing your eyes and having a more focus in your brain. Aromatherapy meditation, which is using your sense of smell as sort of your point of focus. So people that enjoy essential oils or other fragrance, it's really when you notice your mind starting to do all those thought cartwheels, bringing your point back to your sense of smell. So using that smell as a grounder. And you can use different scents in order to ground in different ways. Okay, I'm going to see how many I've gone through now. Breath, mantra, aromatherapy, walking, that's 4. Gratitude meditation. So bringing into your brain different things that you're grateful for, that you're thankful for. This is a little bit more of an active style of meditation because you're actually bringing thoughts in, but you're having a similar phrase that you're repeating. But it just, like we talked about, bringing those positive emotional feelings and those feelings into the body is what gratitude meditation does, and really sets your day off on a really positive trajectory because you're teaching your brain, I want to see more things like this. This is what I'm noticing in my world, are the things that make me happy. 60 seconds to calm, which is little like 16-second one, which is a good 911 response. So that's the one. If you really don't think you can sit for less than a minute, is a great one to just get started to reset your nervous system.
And you said you cut out, because people are going to hear this on the podcast, right when you said that one, it's 16 seconds of calm. Is that what that one's called?
16 seconds to calm.
Okay.
And that one was taught to me by my meditation teacher, David G. That's like his favorite. And it's just the 4 seconds that I talked about a little while ago. Visual. Of course, now that I'm like doing it, I'm like, what? There's one I'm missing. That's 6, breath, mantra, visual, walking, aromatherapy. Oh, loving kindness. That's the one we're bringing compassion to yourself and others a lot of. It's hard. It's really easy to see like a meme on Instagram and be like, oh, I love myself and I accept myself. It's another thing to really practice it. So you're sending love and compassion to people out in the world, and then also having that for yourself, which sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's incredibly powerful. So that, like I said, like later in the day when something happens, when you drop a carton of milk on the ground, or you feel like you're doing something quote unquote stupid, you can have a little compassion for yourself and not just go into that judgment phase of like, oh, you should know better than that, or you should do things a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no. And I agree with that one. And that's also, what those judgment phrases, those dark voices in our heads are usually the leftovers of, parents or caregivers or other messages that we got. And part of the practice of healing from trauma is to reparent yourself. Mm-hmm. And so being able to remember that that's your parent voice talking to yourself the way that someone should have talked to you, and to remember that that's a real voice. That's an important voice, and that the other ones don't matter anymore. So I can definitely see that one as well. It's funny, you mentioned mantra, and I actually, when you mentioned it, I was like, I've done that before. I didn't know what I was doing, but when I played softball, sometimes I played at shortstop or second base, which is right in the heat of the field. And if you weren't really paying attention or you weren't really focused, it was real easy to get knocked out, especially if you were playing co-ed. So if anybody's played co-ed softball, the ball coming off a bat when a guy hits it at you is really fast. And I've actually almost had my ankle broken playing third doing this. And so whenever I've actually needed focus, I actually had a mantra in my head. And it was just this really short Edgar Allan poem that he had that was like 4 lines long. And I would just repeat it back to myself and just stare right back at the batter. That way, my thought wasn't anywhere except right there in the moment. Mm-hmm. So especially if I expected a ball to be hit at me. So anyways, that's practicing amazing. Meditation and softball.
That's an incredible way to utilize that. I actually, when I started meditating, I really didn't enjoy mantras, like personally. And now if I'm just like having to go to a go-to, that's the one I usually go to now. So I have found it interesting that for me personally at this point, that's like the easiest way for me to direct my focus.
Yeah. And, and I find that for me as well, like how it applies today is, especially if I'm dealing with difficult people, like certain people, sometimes and I've done this before where I've written out where I believe this person fits in my life and what they have to teach me about my experience with them. Right. And that's a really hard, mature thing that you have to be able to do. Because sometimes you're people like, that guy's just a jerk. He has no value to my life. But everybody has an opportunity to teach us something about ourselves and about our experiences and how we engage with them. And so I've done this where I've written out 4 lines, about a person. And so when I'm having this conflict with this individual, and sometimes we run into in personal relationships, friendships, they could be coworkers, bosses, whatever it is, then having those 4 lines in the back that said, they are this, this, and this, or you're learning from this experience, that this person's here to teach you how to do this person's here to teach you how to do that. And running that through your head is another way of kind of like re-regulating. So if they're coming at you with whatever garbage they're spitting out at that moment, that mantra through your head, pacing yourself goes, it's okay, that's fine. They're going to do what they need to do. I need to understand where they fit into all of this. And so I found that is, I wouldn't have identified honestly that as a meditation technique, but it is something that I've used it in that capacity. And so it really seems like with the matchmaker, I could totally get where different circumstances allow us to rely on different strategies, and that there isn't one size fits all for even the individual. Like there are multiple ways that we can kind of gain control over these thoughts in our heads.
Exactly.
I said it again. We're not trying to control these thoughts. Obviously, I'm a controlling person. I'm all about controlling everything. All right. One of the other things I noticed on your website too is color calm. And you've got these really amazing videos that show the color. Describe what that is and how that might be helpful for folks.
It's a form of visual meditation. So I have found they're all less than a minute. And so there are these videos of these inks that I use different like ways and different things I mix them with so they act differently. So they're not one's the same, but it's just like these floating ink of bright colors. And it's just a way for people to ground themselves. And like you're having a stressful day at work, you're interacting with someone that you're having to remind yourself that you're learning from because it's not going well. Just a way to recenter yourself, and you don't have to do anything and it's on a screen. So you don't have to like put your phone away. You can just pull it up. It's on my website. And I also post them to my social media accounts of just like watching this for a minute and noticing like where your brain's going while you're doing it. So just like being curious about it. Like, how did she make that? I wonder what color's coming. I like how that looks, and just being curious about it instead of judging what's been going on. And that's just a really quick reset. It's something fun to look at. Kids, I've had great feedback and when I use them with teenagers and kids, because it's something anyone can do. You don't need to be a certain age. And they're really good at the curiosity thing because they're like, whoa, like, how did you do that? So they don't have to work at it as much as adults do. But it's just a really fun, pretty, quick reset that you don't really have to think about too much.
Cool. Now, when this episode airs, it's going to be in December, and it's going to be like in the heat of the holidays here in the US. And, one of the things that I wanted us to do was actually go through an example that somebody might consider needing to use, especially because we've talked about this. Sometimes some of our families we don't have to ever see again. And then, some people are in the heat of it. They still have to go find themselves in social gatherings, whether that is a Christmas office party and they're an introvert and they hate doing it, but they're going to it anyways, or going to a family dinner or whatever, whatever particularly stressful situation that they may be encountering, especially this time of year. So can you actually like guide us through, something that might be, maybe it's a 911. I'll let you pick because you're the expert, not me. Okay.
I think a 911 is perfect because a lot of times when those situations are happening, you can't be like, excuse me for a moment. I'm going to like go over here by myself.
Right.
Because that'll be more anxiety provoking too. But recognizing that if you are an introvert at an office party and things like that, that you do need moments, even if that's in the bathroom, just to go in and notice your breath. But this is something that you can do while you're standing there talking to someone that just will reset yourself. So go on and let's just think of a mildly annoying holiday situation. Don't go really deep, like nothing traumatic or anything like that, but just something that's going to probably piss you off. And then go ahead and take a deep breath in. Hold it. Now blow it out for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then keep it out for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then open your eyes. And are you still thinking about that annoying thing?
No, not at all.
Yeah. So it's like amazing because you just know you bring your body is looking at your breath, is noticing your breath, and it takes a little mind control to keep your breath in and out for that amount because it doesn't feel natural. So your body has to think about it instead of automatically doing it. And it's just a little quick reset. So you're not thinking about that annoying thing anymore, and you can decide what you want to do, and you can do it repeatedly too, and you can even do it like in a conversation. No one's going to know you're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. No. And exactly what was going through my head was, okay, I just let out 4 seconds. Oh my God, I don't have enough air, and now I got to hold my. It was like, okay. And you're right. Like the problem was not my problem anymore. My problem was whether or not I was going to suffocate, and I need to practice at this a little bit better. So. Now you have a program that you're getting ready to launch. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because again, I'd like everybody to listen to these shows, go, holy crap, I need to do this, and then come find you because again, I'm not the meditation expert, you are. So tell us a little bit about what you have available for people to come that want to start to pursue this and integrate this into life.
I'm getting ready to launch in January, the School of Calm, which is a quick how-to meditation, but it's not just how to meditate, it's how to actually like make it part of your life so that it's enjoyable so that you can get those benefits and make it work for your life. So we'll cover things like the whys, the background, and also your whys. Like, why are you doing this? Why is this important for you? a little bit of the science, the history, the different types of meditation. Each one of those will go much more in depth in the meditation matchmaker, so you can hear a little bit more about it, and then also decide like, oh, I want to try this one, or this sounds sort of interesting, to maybe self-select a little bit more. We go a lot in depth into the meditation triangle, so you can really develop your own, what works for you. So you're not having to think about like in that moment, like, oh, what am I going to do about this? It's just like what you described of having those 4 phrases like memorized and wrote, that you don't have to really think about it. It just becomes a habit. So figuring out what your habits are going to be. And then a lot of teaching about meditation habits, how we can make this part of your life so that it's seamless. It doesn't take a lot of time, and so that you'll actually do it, so that all those benefits will happen for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I will say that, having practiced this in some form or another, like I said, for almost 20 years, I didn't think that I needed to meditate in the middle of the softball game. It just, it comes to you. You do start to develop this recognition of, and being able to shift those gears, pretty easily. The newer aspect of it in my life has been, like I said, understanding now my somatic responses to triggers, again, the sympathetic nervous system, and beginning to feel the benefits of that, in a different way. But having already been doing it to some form or another, even that becomes much more commonplace. And, and like I said, I chose to use an object to help me, to ground me, because that's what I like. I like holding on to this because I use this in a variety of ways. And again, listeners, I'm sorry, I'm gripping my rhodonite, on my chain. And you don't need one of these, but it could work. I found that it did for me. Like this was something that helped me do this more often. And then the more often I do it, the more natural it feels. And next thing you know, it is an integrated part of life. And there is a lot of benefit. I do admit that I don't spend enough time with the longer term. And, with sitting down. I visualize a lot, but I don't dump my trash as often. And in the winter, it's a little harder because we're up in the Northwest. You and I were sharing stories for everybody that's listening. She's out of Olathe, Kansas. And I know a lot of my listeners are people that I've known from the old days. And she was describing where Olathe was. And was like, hey, sister, I was born in Olathe, so I know where that's at. But anyways, in the Northwest and even anywhere other places, it can be hard to get out. So if your meditation is around going outside and exercising and it's like raining and it's 30, then you don't want to do that. So I need to integrate it into my life a little bit better in a way that doesn't rely on the exercise piece of it and the walking part of it and stuff. And so that's a work in progress for me. Well, I'll tell you what, this has been a fantastic conversation, Jen. I really do appreciate you talking about this and, demystifying, something that a lot of people has believed to be a pretty mystical thing, and showing, the benefits and different ways that we can actually do this. So I'm grateful, that you took this time with me today to talk about it.
Thank you. And I've enjoyed this so much. I love talking about this and sharing this, especially with the trauma slant. Like that's my other passion. Being able to put those together is amazing. So thank you for the opportunity to chat.
Oh, awesome. Cool.